We are going to continue discussions here on Ground Report this morning. In studio, we're joined by political analyst Sethakgi Kgomo, who joins us in studio. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you so much for joining us here on Ground Report. Your comments based on the media briefing we just heard.
Well, I think what we see now is actually a demonstration that the ANC says that the 52nd conference resolution of the ANC, which was in 2007, is now being implemented, which emphasizes that the party, not an individual, is the center of power. In other words, that emphasizes the fact that it is the ANC, not anyone else, who will decide as to what happens in terms of the deployment, etc. The second thing is that the ANC also has underscored the importance of branches in terms of the compilation of the election lists, which then fits into regions, fits into provinces, and also national, which is what we have seen. Now, they also have confirmed now that their mayoral candidate for Tshwane, being Thoko Didiza, is a final name, and that the people must rally behind her, and that they must support and ensure that then she then hits the ground running. What also is very important in terms of my reading of what is taking place, violence, etc., is what in psychology we can call it storming, norming, and forming. So in other words, the mere fact that the change has happened in terms of the introduction of election lists is a new culture in the ANC, which the people will become accustomed to, and therefore they then are, at this point of time, are in the storming stage. Storming means that people have to find each other. The party has to actually say that this is the new way of doing things. Then at a later stage, then there will be norming stage. The norming is then the adoption and acceptance of what are the new values, which Duarte has mentioned that violence is not one of the values of the ANC, but it is that we have to focus on ensuring that Tshwane is in their backs. Then from there, the last stage will be then the forming. That is that adoption of the new way of doing things. That's what in sociology they call it the SNP principle.
It's abundantly clear, though, Sethakgi, that there could be factions within the ANC in Tshwane, as we've seen. This may not necessarily be a popular vote or a popular nomination in Tshwane. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with the fact that this may not be a unanimously popular decision? Well,
it calls for change management principles coming into. Like I've mentioned earlier on, that you have to now go through that stages, storming, norming, and forming. So, which means therefore that the new leadership, which is then vested in Thoko Didiza, is then to try very fast and very quick to actually calm the waters, and also try to unite everybody in the metro to ensure that Tshwane is a very important a political center, executive capital of the Republic, that the ANC would like to continue holding grip on it. So that is the very big challenge for Thoko Didiza and the rest of the people. What is very interesting also is the assurance that has been given by the Deputy Secretary General, that the outgoing mayor, Ramokgopa, is assured that the party still believes in him, and it is expected that he will be deployed elsewhere. So that sends a very, very positive message that whoever are his supporters would still expect that the new leadership coming into Tshwane must be supported, because there is the assurance that their leader will not be abandoned.
Let's expand a little bit on the decision with regards to Kgotsienso Ramokgopa and that decision of him not being included on the mayoral candidates list. What would possibly be some of the reasons? You touched on the fact that he might now be moved to a different department or a different aspect, but talk us through some of the reasoning why maybe he wasn't included.
Well, first of all, the ANC's policy of deployment is key here. And they therefore have to assess the type of leadership as times changes, as challenges come to the fore. The ANC accept that there are new players like the EFF of this world, etc., and therefore they have actually undertaken a process of assessing who then would be the right candidates in all metros, in all municipalities, and therefore they had, in my opinion, had come to the realization that Ramokgopa is not the person that should actually take Tshwane forward. It may well be that there are certain weaknesses they have seen in him, but then that's not a very key thing. The key thing is that they would like to get a candidate who will, in the opinion of the party, be able to carry Tshwane forward. And also that, very importantly, is to send the message that the ANC is the center of power, not any individual.
Let's talk a little bit about, it's abundantly clear that the ANC are genuinely concerned about losing Tshwane in the upcoming elections. And I'll tell you why. The opposition, in Tshwane have said the capital city, I mean, it's an incredibly important city being the administrative capital. Losing Tshwane could have huge ramifications in terms of the perception that the ANC aren't even able to rule their own, their own capital city. I mean, it has massive ramifications. Do you think change here is a good idea? Do you think they're in panic mode in terms of how they deal with the prospects in Tshwane?
Well, I think they therefore acknowledge that there are challenges in terms of the changing political dynamics around the metro, and therefore that's why they have to then be able to beef up their candidacy, and therefore they believe Thoko Didiza is the person. By the way, Thoko Didiza is a person who has got a very long history in the ANC, has got a very unimpeachable integrity, hard worker, an intelligentsia, etc., etc. But I think one will have to look at Tshwane in perspective of what the latest figures from Ipsos survey has got. What actually struck me was that in 2014, they had 7% of the people that say they don't know who they vote for. The latest says that in June 2016 is 70% of the people that say they don't know who to vote. That, therefore, to me, it constitutes a very important ground on which people like Thoko Didiza have to work very hard to actually convince those to say, come to the ANC. Obviously, that gives the opportunity also to other parties as well. So this 17% of the undecided voters, therefore, constitute an opportunity. At the same time, obviously, a threat if they don't jack up their electioneering processes.
Let's expand a little bit on the opposition party. The EFF has come forward and said that no matter who the ANC decides on as their mayoral candidates for Tshwane, they'll never be able to clean up the mess with regards to corruption issues, housing issues, and poor service delivery in Tshwane. Your comments?
Well, I think, first of all, let's just clarify one thing. Throughout the country, and including in Tshwane, corruption is not a big issue. Service delivery is. And let me also look at the EFF. Who are they? The EFF is a party that was formed just before 2014 elections. The genesis of that party is a party that was formed out of anger of a few individuals, and then they are now in the process of what I would like to call a political honeymoon. That is the excitement among the youth and other people who believe in them. And I would like to believe that all that they are promising is not necessarily realistic. Nationalization, for example, is an unworkable policy. I don't think it will ever be adopted in South Africa, such a thing. And I don't think they will ever be able to rule South Africa. I don't also believe that they can ever rule Tshwane. The ANC, in terms of the Ipsos survey, I think they've got a good chance of holding on the grip of Tshwane. If they can be able to convince the 17% that I'm talking about, they don't know, the undecided voters. The EFF, I think their political honeymoon will sooner or later be a thing of the past. I would like to believe that come 2019, I don't think they will be able to poll the 6% that they polled in 2014. It remains therefore to be seen as to what type of electoral support they will be able to gain on the 3rd of August in local government elections.
According to those figures, 17% is quite a lot. actually, if you're considering from 7 to 17 of undecided voters, is there a concern with the ANC that the lack of support may leak into other municipalities such as Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni? It may start spreading. I mean, these municipalities are fairly close geographically together, and that if you leak one, it may leak into another and into another. Is that a genuine concern?
Well, I think it is, to a greater extent, there is a concern across the country also that sometimes a perception becomes a reality to some people. If they believe that there is something that is bedeviling a political party, people would tend to believe that is the case. But as I said earlier on, corruption is not mentioned as any big issue, even on the program that this station is running. The SA Decide, there isn't. It's bread and butter issues that are being mentioned. With regard to Tshwane, yes, service delivery issues is the key. If you look at Hammanskraal, also the latest incidents where there's been serious problems that had to force the province to get involved in, is saying that the ANC should work very harder to make sure that the concerns of the people are addressed. Well, one can also say the same thing with regard to other areas within the Republic, that they need to be assured that there will be a greater momentum built into service delivery going forward, that it is not only an electioneering thing, it is a genuine commitment that there will be service delivery.
Fascinating. That's where we're going to leave it. So I know we're going to be chatting in the upcoming months. Political analyst Sethakgi Kgomo there. It has been officially announced this morning. The speculation is over. Thoko Didiza is the ANC mayoral candidate in Tshwane.